It is not easy to predict the outcome of any court trial in Nigeria, not to talk of election dispute. No matter the evidence before the judges in an election dispute, you cannot still predict how they will decide because of the Nigerian factor and many other reasons. Going by the certificate forgery by Tinubu that Atiku tendered at the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, we will take a look at some politicians who were sacked by the courts for this kind of forgery of documents in the past. It's a way of trying to predict if the judges will sack Tinubu, because it's logical to say that if Mr. A and Mr. B were sacked for forging documents to gain political office, why wouldn't Tinubu be sacked for the same thing if it is proved? The law is no respecter of persons. It should apply to everyone no matter their status. After we show you some of these politicians, we will take time to answer some of your questions. Christian Abba was sacked by the Supreme Court from the Federal House of Representatives because he presented a forged OND certificate from Federal Polytechnic, Mubi, Adamawa State. On that day, March 11, 2017, while delivering the judgment, Honorable Justice Bagge said, "It is a must to take the lead, righting the wrong in our society if and when the opportunity presents itself, as in this appeal. Allowing criminality and certificate forgery to continue to percolate into the streams, waters, and oceans of our national polity will only mean that our waters are and will remain dangerously contaminated. The purification efforts must start now and be sustained as we seek a nation to now change from our old culture of reckless impunity. The Nigerian Constitution is supreme. It desires that no one who has ever presented a forged certificate to INEC should contest election into the Nigerian National Assembly. This is clear and sacrosanct." The Supreme Court ordered INEC to retrieve the certificate of return from Christian Abba and issue a certificate of return to the second-placed Hassan Saleh. It is important to know that Honorable Justice Ogi, who is still serving in the Supreme Court, was among the 5 justices of the Supreme Court that gave the unanimous judgment. Another serving justice, Honorable Justice Chima Nweze, was also among the panel members. Remember that Chima Nweze was among the justices that delivered judgment in favor of Ahmad Lawan. That judgment made Lawan, who didn't participate in the senatorial primaries in Yobe State, to become the winner of the senatorial election. It seems the other justices are retired. Honorable Justice Chima Nweze was also the only dissenting voice in the Supreme Court when Ihedioha came back to the Supreme Court to review the judgment after he was sacked by the same court as governor. Nweze said that Uzodimma mischievously misled the court into unjust conclusion. With the unverified votes in 388 polling units, he also said, "This court once set aside its own earlier judgment and therefore cannot use time frame to extinguish the right of any person. This court has powers to overrule itself and can revisit any decision not in accordance with justice. This decision of the Supreme Court will continue to haunt our electoral jurisprudence for a long time to come without evidence of meeting other constitutional provisions. The court misled itself into declaring Uzodimma as governor. The court has a duty of redeeming its image," Honorable Justice Nweze concluded. The review of the judgment was dismissed by the Supreme Court anyway. While we are going through all this, it's so that people will understand that it's difficult to get into the mind of a judge. You can never predict how he will deliver judgment, no matter the evidence before them. The second example is the story of David Leon of Bayelsa State, which is very well known, partly because people pay more attention to news about politicians occupying executive positions. But he was sacked by the Supreme Court a day before his swearing in because his deputy forged a certificate. He also went for a review like Ihedioha did, but they didn't take it lightly with him. In fact, they felt insulted that after a few weeks they delivered judgment, the person is coming back for a review. The Supreme Court dismissed the review and fined him 60 million naira. So going by the issue of certificate and document forgery by politicians seeking public offices, one can comfortably say that the court has been very firm. They don't tolerate it. So will anything change when Tinubu's case is proved? We already have 2 judicial precedents where a federal house member and a governor-to-be were all sacked by the Supreme Court. Will they find a way to exonerate Tinubu, or will they follow the established pattern of sacking certificate and document forgers? Since the Fourth Republic began in 1999, the first politician that fell from office because of document forgery was Evan, or is it Evans, Enwerem. The controversy that led to his removal as Senate President was his real name, whether it was Evan or Evans, and other unresolved issues. He was later replaced by Chubo Kadibo. The second politician that fell was Salisu Buhari, who forged a Toronto University certificate he never attended. By the way, Tinubu was also involved in Toronto University scandal. Anyway, this guy falsified his age, presented fake documents to gain admission to Ahmadu Bello University Zaria. He was humiliated out of office and charged and convicted for perjury. He was later pardoned by Obasanjo. Salisu Buhari's case was going on in the National Assembly when Tinubu was facing the same issue of certificate forgery at the Lagos State House of Assembly. Actually, one of the reasons Tinubu had to acquire so much wealth was because of the scare he faced in the early days as governor of Lagos State. He knew his impeachment was a serious possibility because a precedent has been set with the likes of Gani Fawemi mounting serious pressure. He knew he could be impeached. Even at the time, we still had many decent politicians in his own party, AD. Those politicians couldn't be swayed by money. Many of them truly wanted to serve and not betray the trust of voters. The AD won in all the states in the southwest geopolitical zone. So with all these in consideration, he started acquiring money to buy everyone's loyalty, and he eventually succeeded because during his investigation by the Lagos State House of Assembly, 2 other senators from Lagos State dissociated themselves from Senator Afikiomi's cover-up, that he was the one that filled his forms and therefore took responsibility for the errors. That time, there was still a semblance of democracy in Lagos, unlike today, after he acquired too much money and had virtually everyone in his pocket. That's why he solely decides who becomes governor of Lagos State. He doesn't want to lose his stranglehold and state capture of Lagos State. So after all these judicial precedents, how will the court decide when they deliver judgment on his certificate forgery and other issues concerning the election? It's a waiting game. Going by the timeline set by the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal judges, they will deliver judgment in the first week of August. Then there's still an appeal at the Supreme Court where they will take about 60 days to deliver the final judgment. Now, let's start with the question many people are asking. Will Tinubu leave office if he is sacked by the Supreme Court? Yes, he will leave. He has no other option left. The Supreme Court is the final appeal. There's nothing else he can do. Just pack his bags and leave. Nature Intelligence wants to know when actual votes will be presented to the public so that they will see it. That will happen when the tribunal delivers judgment, or maybe it will come up during the defense and arguments by the respondents. If you notice, the Labour Party witnesses, when questioned on the number of votes that P2B scored, they always made reference to the tendered documents. So unless one of the respondents cites them during their arguments, then it will have to be when the tribunal delivers judgment. They will announce the lawful votes that everyone scored according to the evidence before them. Donna wants to know if the court can remove a sitting president with all his powers. The courts have the power to remove him, and it has nothing to do with immunity. This is an election dispute. The election is not completed without the termination of court disputes. So if after the trial they discover that he didn't win, they will remove him. We have 3 arms of government: the legislative arm, the judiciary, and the executive. The judiciary and the legislative arm can remove a president going by the process of impeachment. Kajetan and Sochi are asking about 25% in Abuja, that none of the petitioners talked about it in court. Actually, the 25% in Abuja is a constitutional matter. It doesn't require the petitioners to call a witness. If you remember, in Labour Party's petition, they asked the court to nullify Tinubu's declaration because he didn't score 25% in Abuja. So we might hear this next week when the respondents will present their defense. Otherwise, the judges will just interpret the constitution in their final judgment. Ivy wants to know the impact of 18,000 blood results on IREV. The impact will be huge if the judges are not able to determine the winner after counting the lawful votes. The 18,000 polling units that are unaccounted for by INEC represents more than 2 million votes, assuming about 150 persons will vote in each polling unit. So it's a huge number that can make a difference. Not that all of them will vote for one candidate. It can be a ground for rerun if they can't determine a winner. Also, Atiku mentioned in his petition that the margin between him and Tinubu is less than the unaccounted votes. So the petitioners might have presented alternative copies of results in these areas, but they just want to prove non-compliance by INEC, because apart from the Supreme Court judgment on BVAS and IREV, the electoral law says that before collation can take place, they must make reference to uploaded results on IREV. So if 18,000 results are blurred on IREV, it means that they didn't consult IREV before collating the results in all the affected areas. Ike wants to know if the Supreme Court will say the same thing on immunity as they said in the case of perjury in the early 2000s. It is not the same. The petitioners are not seeking perjury charges against Tinubu. PDP presented forged documents by Tinubu, so if the court agrees with them, that means they will disqualify him based on that, like in some of the instances in this video. Perjury charge is quite different. User KV has a lot of questions. Let's start from number 1. There are 5 judges, not 4. The reason is very obvious, so that they won't tie. The 5th person will always break the tie. Answer to number 2 question, he can't sign any law against the tribunal because their job is constitutional. He can't sack the judges except one recuses himself. Even at that, it is the responsibility of the President of the Court of Appeal to appoint the panel members. Number 3 is unfounded. You can take time to watch all the videos about the proceedings we've made. Thank you. Tina is asking the impact the lack of cooperation by INEC will have on Labour Party's petition. Like already said in many videos, Labour Party wanted INEC to be on record in court that they don't have some of the documents or that they failed to supply them to them. They must have tendered alternatives because you can't be claiming that you won an election and you don't have evidence to prove it. So they must have tendered alternative copies to prove their case. Besides, in the eyes of the law, when someone is blocking evidence, the law sees it that the evidence will affect the person in court, that it will be injurious to the person's case. Otherwise, INEC will not be hiding the documents where they can easily bring them out and tell the court, yes, this person won the election, look at the results, we are sure of what we did. Odi wants to know what will happen to Mahmood Yakubu if Tinubu is sacked by the Supreme Court. That will be the prerogative of the new president. Definitely he will be sacked if he doesn't resign by himself. He might also face charges depending on whether the Attorney General wants to bring some charges or let it slide. Violence wants to know what will happen if Tinubu is disqualified. He has the right of appeal to the Supreme Court, so he will exhaust that appeal before leaving office. Alright, if you've got more questions, feel free to ask them and we'll try to answer them in subsequent videos. Thanks for watching.